Hello, today I will tell you about the new nation's economy. The US Constitution, adopted in the 1787 and it affects to this day, was in many ways a work of creative genius. As an economic charter, it established that the entire nation, stretching then from Maine to Georgia, from the Atlantic Ocean to Mississippi Valley, was a unified or common market. There were to be tariffs or taxes on interstate commerce. The Constitution provided that the federal government could regulate commerce with foreign nations, and among the states establish uniform bankruptcy laws, create money and regulate its value, fix standards of weights and measures, establish post offices and roads, and fix rules governing patents and copyrights. The last mentioned clause was an early recognition of the importance of intellectual property, a matter that would assume great importance in trade negotiations in the late 20th century. Alexander Hamilton, one of the nation's founding fathers and its first Secretary of Treasury, advocated an economic development strategy in which the federal government would nurture and fund industries by providing overt substitutes and imposing protective tariffs on imports. He also urged the federal government to create a national bank to assume the public debts and that colonies had incurred during the Revolutionary War. The new government dallied over some of Hamilton's proposals, but ultimately it did make tariffs an essential part of American foreign policy, a position that lasted until among the middle of the 20th century. Although early American farmers feared that a national bank would serve the rich at the expense of poor, the first national bank of the United States was chartered in 1791. It lasted until the 1811s, after which a successor bank was chartered. Hamilton believed that the United States should pursue economic growth through diversified shipping, manufacturing, and banking. Hamilton's political rival Thomas Jefferson based his philosophy on protecting the common man from political and economic tyranny. He particularly raised small farmers as the most valuable citizens. In 1801, Jefferson became president and turned to promoting a more decentralized agrarian democracy. Movement south and westward. Cotton, at first a small-scale crop in the south, boomed following Eli Whitney's invention in the 1793 of the cotton gin, a machine that separated raw cotton from seeds and other waste. Planters in the south bought land from small farmers who frequently moved farther west. Some large plantations supported by slave labor made some families very wealthy. It wasn't just Southerns who were moving west, however, whole villages in the east sometimes uprooted and established new settlements in the more fertile farmland of the Midwest. While Western settlers are often depicted as fiercely independent and strongly opposed to any kind of government control or interference, they actually received a lot of government help directly and indirectly. Government created national roads and waterways such as Cumberland Pike and the Erie Canal, helped new settlers migrate west, and later helped move Western farm produce to market. Many Americans, both poor and rich, idealized Andrew Jackson, who became president in 1829 because he had started life in a log cabin in frontier territory. President Jackson opposed the successor to Hamilton National Bank, which he believed favored the interest of East against the West. When he was elected for a second term, Jackson opposed renewing a bank's charter, and Congress supported him. This action shook confidence in the nation's financial system, and business panics occurred in both 1834 and 1837. Periodic economic dislocation did not curtail rapid U.S. economic growth during the 19th century. New inventions and capital investment led to the creation of new industries and economic growth. As transportation improved, new markets continually opened. The steamboat made river traffic faster and cheaper, but development of railroads had an even greater effect, opening vast stretches of territory for development. Like canals, roads, railroads received large amounts of government assistance in their very early building years in the form of land grants. But unlike other forms of transportation, railroads also attracted a good deal of domestic and European private investment. In these days, get-rich-quick schemes abounded. Financial manipulators made fortunes overnight. But many people lost their savings. Nevertheless, a combination of vision of foreign investment combined with the discovery of gold and a major commitment of America's public and private wealth enabled the nation to develop a large-scale railroad system, establishing the base for the country's industrialization. Industrial growth. The Industrial Revolution began in Europe in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, and it quickly spread to the United States by 1860. When Abraham Lincoln was elected president, 16% of the US population lived in urban areas, and a third of the nation's income came from manufacturing. Urbanized industry was limited primarily to the northeast. Cotton cloth production was the leading industry, with the manufacture of shoes, woolen clothing, and machinery also expanding. Many new workers were immigrants. Between 1845 and 1855, some 300,000 European immigrants arrived annually. Most were poor and remained in the eastern cities, often at ports of arrival. The south of other lands remained rural and depended on the north for capital and manufactured goods. Southern economic interests, including slavery, could be protected by political power only as long as the South controlled the federal government. The Republican Party, organized in 1856, represented the industrialized North in the 1860s. Republicans and their presidential candidate Abraham Lincoln were speaking hesitantly and on slavery, but they were much cleverer on economic policy. In 1861, they successfully pushed adoption of protective tariff. In 1862, the first Pacific Railroad was chartered. In 1863 and 1864, a national bank was drafted. Northern victory in the U.S. Civil War, however, scaled the destiny of nations and economic system. The slave labor system was abolished, making the large southern cotton plantations much less profitable. Northern industry, which had expanded rapidly because of the demands of the war, surged ahead. Industrialists came to dominate many aspects of nation's life, including social and political affairs. The planters' aristocracy of the South, portrayed sentimentally 70 years later in the film classic Gone with Wild, disappeared. Inventions, development, and icons. It will be our topic for the next video.